Her name was Emily. And if I am being honest, I think I lost her long before I ever realized she was slipping away. Not because she stopped loving me, not because we stopped talking, but because there was always someone else in the middle of our life. Someone who decided where we should go, what we should eat, when we should leave, what we should say, and the worst part? My wife thought it was normal. She called it close friendship. I called it disrespect. But I stayed quiet for too long. Until one night, when I finally tried to spend one simple, peaceful hour alone with my own wife, and someone walked in and destroyed even that. That was the moment I understood something important. Sometimes, silence is not weakness. Sometimes, silence is just the pause before the truth. And when I finally spoke, I said something that changed everything. Story begins. My name is Daniel. I am not a loud man. I do not like drama. I do not raise my voice unless I really have to. I believe peace is expensive, and once you lose it, it is very hard to buy it back. Emily used to love that about me. At least, that is what she told me in the beginning. She said I made her feel safe. She said I was calm when the world was loud. She said she liked how I listened before I spoke. And maybe that is why I loved her so deeply. Because with Emily, I did not just feel wanted. I felt understood. We had a simple life. Not a perfect one, but a real one. We lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Chicago. We had a small home, a small routine, and big dreams that we kept folded carefully inside our hearts. On weekdays, I worked long hours at a logistics company. Emily worked from home as a graphic designer. We were not rich, but we were building something. A life, a future, a marriage. At least, that is what I thought. Then came Trevor. Trevor was Emily's friend from college. Or maybe acquaintance is the better word. He was the kind of man who entered a room and acted like he already owned it. He had an opinion on everything. He spoke too much, smiled too easily, and inserted himself into every conversation like it was his right. When we first met him, I tried to be polite. I shook his hand. I asked him about his work. I laughed at his stupid jokes. I thought maybe he was just outgoing, but I was wrong, very wrong, because Trevor was not just a talkative man. He was a man who loved control. Not direct control. No, the subtle kind. The kind that hides inside suggestions. The kind that wears a friendly face. The kind that slowly takes up space until nobody notices there is no room left for anyone else. At first, it was small things. We would be deciding where to have dinner, and Trevor would text Emily, "Go to that Thai place on Maple. Trust me, better choice." Emily would look at me and say, "Maybe he's right." Then it became weekend plans. We would talk about going to the lake, and Trevor would suddenly have an opinion. "Actually, that area is overrated. You guys should go downtown instead." Then it became food. If Emily wanted pasta, Trevor would say sushi was better. If I suggested barbecue, Trevor would call it too heavy. If Emily wanted quiet, he wanted fun. If I wanted peaceful, he called it boring. And Emily? Emily would smile and say, "Trevor just knows what's good." The first time I heard that, I laughed. The second time, I stayed quiet. The third time, I started paying attention. Because I noticed something else. Trevor never asked what I wanted. Never. He never said, "Daniel, what do you think?" He never cared about my opinion unless it disagreed with him. And when it did, he acted like I was the problem. One Friday evening, Emily and I were planning to eat at home. Nothing fancy. Just us. I had bought flowers on the way home. I had picked up her favorite dessert. I had even left my phone in the other room because I wanted one clean, quiet hour with my wife. I wanted to ask her about the future. Maybe about taking a short trip. Maybe about starting a family. I wanted to talk about dreams. Real ones. the kind that belong to two people who still believe in each other. Emily was in the kitchen, humming softly while setting the table. For a moment I thought, this is it. This is our life. This is what matters. Then her phone rang. Trevor. She answered immediately. I did not mean to listen, but the apartment was quiet, and his voice was loud enough to fill every corner. Emily, don't tell me you're still staying home tonight, he said. She laughed lightly. Why? Because you need to come out. There's a new place opening downtown. You and Daniel should go there. Or better yet, you should come with me and Megan. Daniel can stay home if he wants. I frowned. Emily glanced at me like she was already halfway out the door with him. I heard myself say, we already made plans. Trevor laughed. Not kindly. Like my sentence was cute. Like it did not matter. Plans can change, man. Don't be so serious. I took a breath and said calmly, actually, it matters to us. Trevor went quiet for half a second, then said, relax. I'm helping. Helping. That word, people use it when they want power without responsibility. Emily covered the speaker and whispered, Daniel, don't make this awkward. He's just trying to help. Trying to help. That was the phrase she used every time. I looked at the flowers in my hand. I looked at the table Emily had set for two, and I realized something with a painful clarity. There were already 3 people in our marriage, and only 2 of them knew it. I sat down slowly. Emily, I said, can I talk to you later? She smiled, as if I was being dramatic. About what? About us. She gave me that same soft, dismissive look people give when they think your feelings are inconvenient. Not now, she said. Trevor's trying to plan the weekend. I stared at her. He was planning our weekend, and she said it like that was normal. Like that was acceptable. Like my voice was optional. The pattern, after that night, I began seeing Trevor everywhere. Not physically. In our decisions. In our conversation. In the way Emily checked her phone before answering me. In the way she asked Trevor what he thought before she asked me. In the way she trusted his judgment with things that should have belonged to our marriage alone. Where should we go for vacation? Trevor had an opinion. What should Emily wear to my company dinner? Trevor had an opinion. Should we visit my parents on Sunday? Trevor had an opinion. Even when I tried to ignore it, Trevor was there. Always there. And Emily kept defending him. He just cares. He means well. He knows me really well. One night, I finally asked her, why does he need to know everything about our life? She looked genuinely confused. Because he's my friend. I have friends too, I said. She crossed her arms. You're being sensitive. Sensitive. That word hit me harder than I expected. Because it was not sensitive to want privacy. It was not sensitive to want respect. It was not sensitive to want your wife's attention without a third person standing in the room between you. But Emily made me feel like I was asking for too much. So, I stopped arguing. I thought maybe if I stayed calm, she would see the problem herself. I thought maybe if I kept loving her, she would remember that a marriage is supposed to be a private place, a safe place, a place where outside voices do not get a permanent seat at the table. But the more I stayed silent, the more Trevor became normal. And the more normal he became, the more invisible I felt. The breaking point. The breaking point came on a Saturday night. Emily and I had planned to go out to dinner. Just us. No friends. No group chat. No distractions. I had even booked a table at a small restaurant near the river. Nothing expensive. Just quiet. Just the 2 of us. I wanted to feel like husband and wife again. Not roommates. Not coworkers. Not 2 people constantly being managed by somebody else. Emily was getting ready in the bedroom. I was fixing my collar in the mirror when my phone buzzed. It was Trevor. I ignored it. Then Emily's phone buzzed. She picked it up. I heard the familiar tone in her voice. Hey, Trevor. Then her face changed. She covered the mouthpiece and said to me, He wants to come by for a minute. I looked at her, completely still. No. She blinked. What do you mean, no? I mean, no. This is our dinner. It's just for a minute. That is exactly the problem, I said, trying to stay calm. Everything with him is just for a minute. Just one call, just one opinion, just one visit. And somehow it keeps becoming our whole life. Emily's expression hardened. He's my friend, Daniel. I know, I said, but he is not part of our marriage. She looked offended, like I had insulted someone sacred. He is not trying to hurt anyone. I never said he was hurting us on purpose. Then why are you acting like this? I took a slow breath, because I did not want to explode. Because I was tired of being painted as the unreasonable one. Because I had spent too many nights swallowing words that should have been said out loud. Emily, I said gently, I just want one evening with my wife. Alone. For a second, I thought she understood. Then she sighed and said, You're making a big deal out of nothing. Nothing. That was what she called my loneliness. That was what she called my need for peace. That was what she called my marriage being crowded by another person. She opened the door before I could answer, and there he was, Trevor, standing there with a grin like he had been invited. Perfect timing, he said. I was nearby. Of course he was. I looked at Emily. She smiled. That same easy smile, that same careless comfort. And in that instant, I knew this was not going to stop unless I stopped it. So I did something I had never done before. I walked to the door, opened it wider, and said, Trevor, before you come in, I need to say something. He raised one eyebrow. Sure, man. Emily folded her arms and looked annoyed already. I kept my voice even. I respect that you are Emily's friend. Trevor nodded, like he expected praise. But this relationship is not yours to manage. The smile on his face began to fade. I turned to Emily. And this life is not meant to be lived with someone always standing in the middle of it. She stared at me. I could see the surprise, the irritation, the disbelief. I continued, still calm. I am not angry because you have a friend. I am hurt because every time I try to spend time with my wife, someone else comes first. Emily whispered, Daniel. But I was not done. I have been patient. I have been quiet. I have been respectful. But I am tired of asking for space in my own marriage. Trevor gave a small laugh, uncomfortable now. You're acting like I'm controlling her. I looked right at him. You may not call it control, but when you decide where we go, what we eat, how we spend time, and when our private moments get interrupted, that is exactly what it becomes. The room went silent. Emily's eyes widened. Trevor shifted his weight. And then, very slowly, I said the words that I had been holding inside for months. It's her life, and she will decide for herself who she spends her time with. But when it comes to me, my wife, and this marriage, there has to be respect, not interference. The aftermath, nobody spoke. Even Trevor, for the first time, had nothing clever to say. Emily looked at me like she had never seen me before. Maybe she had not. Maybe she had only ever seen the version of me that stayed quiet, the version that absorbed things, the version that made peace at his own expense. Trevor cleared his throat and forced a smile. Okay, he said. I get it. No problem. But I could tell he did not get it. Not yet. He left shortly after, with a stiff wave and fake casualness that failed to hide his discomfort. When the door closed, the apartment felt strange. Not peaceful. Not yet. Just real. Emily stood there in silence. I sat down on the couch, my hands clasped together. I had expected anger. I had expected yelling. I had expected her to say I embarrassed her. Instead, she sat across from me and whispered, You could have told me sooner. I nodded slowly. I tried. Her eyes lowered, and for the first time, I saw it. Not guilt, exactly. Not fully. But the beginning of recognition. She said, I didn't think it bothered you this much." That sentence almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, because it was heartbreaking. "How could it not bother me?" I asked softly. "Emily, I married you, not a committee." Tears filled her eyes. I did not enjoy them. I was not trying to win. I was trying to be heard. "I just thought he was helping," she said. "Helping who?" She did not answer, because the truth was right there. He was not helping our marriage. He was replacing the space that should have belonged to us. And Emily had let it happen because she mistook intrusion for care. Maybe because it felt familiar. Maybe because Trevor was loud enough to feel confident. Maybe because sometimes people get used to noise and forget what peace is supposed to sound like. I leaned back and said, "Emily, love is not supposed to feel crowded." She wiped her eyes. That line stayed with her. I could see it, because it stayed with me too. The hard conversation. Later that night, we talked for hours. Really talked. No interruptions. No phones. No Trevor. Just the truth. I told her how small I had started to feel. How every decision began to feel public. How privacy had become permission. How I no longer knew whether she was choosing things for herself or copying what someone else had decided for her. She listened. At first, defensively, then quietly, then with pain. She admitted that Trevor had always been like that, controlling but disguised as helpful, always inserting himself, always acting like the expert. She said she had grown up around people who confused attention with love. She said Trevor's involvement felt normal because it had been normal for so long. That was the saddest part, because when disrespect lasts long enough, people begin calling it routine. I did not yell. I did not humiliate her. I just told her the truth. I want a marriage where we can be alone without feeling guilty. I want dinner without a third opinion. I want plans without a third voice. I want my wife to be able to sit with me and feel that she belongs to the moment, not to someone else's influence. Emily cried that night. Real tears. Not performative ones. Not angry ones. The kind that come when a person finally sees the damage they did not mean to do. And for the first time in a long time, I saw that she wanted to understand. That did not fix everything. Not instantly. Trust does not repair itself just because the truth is spoken. But it was a beginning. A real one. Over the next few weeks, things changed. Not perfectly. Not overnight. Trevor still reached out. He still tried to involve himself. But Emily started answering differently. She stopped sending him every detail. She stopped asking for his opinion on everything. She started asking me first. At first, it felt strange for both of us. Almost like learning how to breathe again. We had to relearn privacy. We had to relearn partnership. We had to relearn that us means two people, not four opinions in one marriage. I am not going to pretend it was easy. Sometimes Emily slipped back into old habits. Sometimes she still looked for outside approval before trusting her own judgment. But she was trying, and that mattered. One evening, a few weeks later, I took her back to the same restaurant by the river. This time, I did not bring flowers. I did not plan a speech. I did not need a perfect moment. I just wanted to sit with my wife and eat in peace. No interruptions. No phones on the table. No outsiders. Just us. Halfway through dinner, Emily looked up and said, "I think I understand now." I met her eyes. She continued, "I thought having someone always involved meant I was being cared for. But maybe I was just never taught the difference between care and control." I reached across the table and held her hand. "That's all I ever wanted you to see." She squeezed my hand back, and in that small, quiet moment, something inside me softened. Not because everything was fixed, but because I knew she was finally listening. People talk a lot about big betrayals, lease, cheating, money, secrets. But sometimes the deepest damage comes from something quieter. A third person in the middle of your decisions. A constant opinion, a voice that never belonged there in the first place. That kind of intrusion can slowly break a marriage without ever making a single loud sound. It does not always look like danger. Sometimes it looks like friendship. Sometimes it looks like help. Sometimes it looks normal. Until one day, you realize you cannot remember the last time you and your partner were truly alone. The last time you made a choice together. The last time your voice mattered. That is why I spoke up. Not because I wanted to win. Not because I wanted to shame anyone. But because love needs space. Respect needs boundaries. And a marriage cannot breathe if someone keeps standing in the doorway. Emily and I are still learning. Still healing. Still building. But now we know something we did not know before. Her life is hers. My life is mine. And our life together? That is something we decide for ourselves. Not for the world. Not for a third voice. Not for anyone else. Just us. And that, more than anything, is what real love sounds like.